Hi everyone, Britta Albert here. If this is your first time here, I am a transformational life coach, and my goal is to help you overcome the things that are standing in your way of living your best and most authentic life. Today is actually a member requested topic. Today we're actually going to talk about dysfunctional families. Now before we get into that, I want to go ahead and give a shout out from my last video about baggage. This comment comes from Michelle B. Zesty Girl. Michelle says, "Hi, I saw you on a channel I follow and I thought I would pop over here as I like to follow like-minded people and lifestyles. I love your content and look forward to watching some of your back videos. Wonderful positive video. Thanks, Michelle." Thank you so much, Michelle. That is such an awesome comment. If you want to see one of your comments featured, comment below and I pick one of my favorites to be in the next video. So today we're going to talk about 5 different types of dysfunctional families. Now, I want to preface before I get into it that this is an oversimplification of different dysfunctional types of families. As I started to create the outline for this video, I realized that there's so much content that could go in here. I would probably end up with a 4-hour-long video. So if you want to see more, or if there's something that I didn't cover, please comment below. And if you want to see a part 2, I can always create one later. Now, the first type of dysfunctional family is going to be the competitors. Their source is generally going to come from insecurity, and they compete with each other. They always have to one-up each other, and they're generally overly critical. Now, the second type of dysfunctional family is the isolators. Their source usually comes from abandonment and fear of rejection. They're emotionally blocked. They have a hard time showing affection to their family members or friends, usually not big huggers. They don't say, "I love you." They don't congratulate you on your accomplishments. They don't really give affirmations as far as you're doing a good job. The third type of dysfunctional family is the abusers. The source for the abusers is the fact that they were once abused themselves, or they were made to feel powerless in a given situation, generally from their childhood. They have emotional abuse and sometimes physical abuse. The fourth type of dysfunctional family are the overachievers. Now, the overachievers and the competitors are slightly different. Where the competitors compete with each other, the overachievers literally compete with the world. They compete with everyone. Their source is fear and love. They have high expectations. They generally have an all or nothing mentality, and they produce a lot of black sheep from their families. The fifth type of dysfunctional family is going to be the reflectors. The source of the reflectors is a lack of self-worth. They're worried about what other people will think about them. They maintain a certain kind of appearance, and they also think that the actions of others reflect upon them and their family. Now again, like I said, these are oversimplifications of just a few different types of dysfunctional families. I chose these 5 because I feel like this is going to be the most common dysfunctional family type. I just want to preface that some of the things that I say can bleed over into other families because we are people. There's not one thing that is cookie cutter about any kind of situation or any family. So I want to jump into each of the 5 different types of dysfunctional families and dig a little bit deeper to figure out where some of this is coming from, what motivates this dysfunction, and how it stays perpetually going. We're going to dive deeper now into the 5 different kinds of dysfunctional families that we will be discussing in this video. The first family is going to be the competitors. Now with the competitors, you need to understand again that they are competing against each other, usually for attention and affection. The biggest fear of the competitors is that they will not be loved. The subconscious agreement within the competitors, and a subconscious agreement is literally as it sounds. It is an agreement that we have made within ourselves, usually in our childhood, about the world or about ourselves and how we interact with the world. The subconscious agreement within the competitive family is, I have to compete for love. Their deepest desire is just to simply be enough and be fully loved and accepted. We already know what the desire is, and we already know what the fear is. So where's the disconnect between the two? How can we bridge the fear and get over the subconscious agreement to the deepest desire. What is the most challenging part for the competitive family member? And that is that to slow down is dangerous. So how can they possibly address and change the behavior if it's too dangerous to slow down? The eventual turnout is going to be burnout. You've seen it time and time again, I'm sure, especially if you have a very deep competitive family and you're able to see the past generations. What are the older folks in your family like? Do they start to close people off, or do they simply start to just do their own thing and not care about what other people think? Then the second type of dysfunctional family that we have is the isolators. And the source of the isolators is going to be abandonment, fear of rejection, and sometimes mental abuse. The isolator is, again, the person that cuts themselves off emotionally. They have a hard time giving praises. They have a hard time showing affection. You might not get a lot of hugs and kisses from an isolator. You generally don't get a good job, I'm proud of you, from an isolator. They're very, very guarded. Now, ultimately, the greatest fear of an isolator is to be alone and unloved. The subconscious agreement within an isolator is that being vulnerable is unsafe and exposing my heart is a weakness. You see this a lot when it comes to men. A lot of times when men are little boys and they start to show their heart, they start to show compassion, or they cry, you'll find could be just anybody in their life that has a significant role in their life. They mean well enough, but when you tell a little boy, suck it up, boys don't cry, or real men don't cry, you're giving an ultimatum here. Real men don't cry. If you're crying, you're not a real man. You stuff it down and you suffocate it and you numb it. Now you're a real man. Now you're going to get respect and admiration from the community, or at least, at the very least, it's just an expectation of your behavior. The isolator's roots run deep with pain. The deepest desire of an isolator is to be fully loved and to be able to easily receive love and give love. Think back to a time in your childhood that was so painful, where somebody hurt you and they spoke that their truth, not the real truth, into you. And instead, what if they would have wrapped their arms around you and told you, you are enough. It's okay to cry. This is not your fault. I feel that desire of the isolator. So what's the biggest challenge for the isolator? The biggest challenge is that it feels unrealistic. Like I said, the isolator roots, they run deep with pain. And at this point in their life, they have almost entirely, if not entirely, given up hope. That is a very big challenge to try to overcome. If you have already given up hope in a situation, it's been done. It can be done, but it requires so much love. The third type of dysfunctional family is going to be the abusers. Their source is the fact that they were most likely abused, or at some point were made to feel powerless in a given situation, generally stemming from childhood. When an abuser abuses, it makes them feel powerful. Because again, there's a point where they felt powerless. They had no control over a situation. A lot of the times when people go through abuse, it's torture. It's literal torture mentally. Even if it's physical, it's mental. It's always mental with it too. The biggest fear of an abuser is being weak and getting hurt again. The subconscious agreement of the abuser is, I have to control, dominate, and be stronger than everyone else in order to be safe. The abuser is so full of fear that they feel like if they can't control their environment, if they can't control other people, it leaves them weak and exposed to where they can get hurt again. And they've been through hell, and I would say back, but really they're still in that hell, even after the abuse has stopped. But in their mind, they feel like they're not experiencing it in the moment anymore. So therefore, they'll be damned if they let anybody ever hurt them like that again. So how can you ensure that your heart is protected? Well, you control your environment, or at least you try. Ultimately, the deepest desire of the abuser is to love and feel loved and be safe and feel safe. The challenge is very difficult with an abuser because an abuser's own actions reinforce their beliefs. The abuser believes that it is not safe, that others cannot be trusted, or most others cannot be trusted. And with their own actions of hurting other people, the other people push them away, sometimes violently. There are consequences for an abuser's actions. And with the abuser's own behavior, they're reinforcing their belief that people cannot be trusted and people will hurt them because people won't stay. Usually with an abuser, intense counseling is required, but there's a lot of work that needs to be done within the psyche of an abuser, and sometimes it's not safe to do that. Some abusers have suppressed memories, and sometimes it actually causes more damage for them to remember the abuse than good. So sometimes the only hope is to heal the emotions, and unless you have somebody in your life who can teach you how to do that or guide you through that, or a counselor who can work with you, or a psychologist, or somebody who can work with an abuser and help them overcome the trauma that they've gone through, or the emotions from the trauma, and heal that, truly heal that, not medicate it, but heal it. That is a hard road. Again, it's not impossible, but that is a very, very hard road for an abuser. If you are in the family of abusers, or an abuser, you do not have to put up with that. It is okay to love your family, but you have to protect you. You cannot protect the abuser. It is sad, but it is true. This one is dangerous. Even the emotional part is dangerous because too much time in that situation can perpetuate this and keep it going for generations. If you are in an abusive family, you have to be the one to break the cycle. That means leave, distance yourself if you are able to. If you're not, reach out to family and friends. This is not a family to be messed with. This family needs intensive healing and therapy. This family is not your fault. If you are in an abusive family, you need to get out. It is not your fault. It is not your responsibility. You do not need to save anyone. Your responsibility is to break this cycle, and that is how you do it. You break the cycle by leaving. All right, let's take a breath real quick. I know I just got pretty heavy on that last one, but it was necessary, and I think you'll all agree with me. Now moving on to the fourth dysfunctional family, this is going to be the overachievers. The overachievers actually compete with the world. They compete with everyone. They're held to very high standards. They are generally a family where straight A's is the minimum exception. There's super, super, super high standards when it comes to the overachievers. And the source of the overachiever is fear and love. And I know that sounds counterintuitive because how can love be the source of something that could be potentially so painful for other members who are within the family? But we'll get there, stick with me. The number one fear for the overachievers is not being enough. Or if you are a parent and you are an overachiever, your fear is your children growing up and struggling. That is where a lot of the love comes from. There's fear for the actual livelihood of your children, or fear for the actual livelihood of yourself. For the subconscious agreement of the overachiever, we're going to take a note from Talladega Nights. Good old Ricky Bobby. If you ain't first, you're last. Well, never have truer words been said for an overachiever. Because in the mind of an overachiever, they have made the subconscious agreement that it is all or nothing. If you are not number one, you have failed. There's no gray area. You either fail or you succeed. That is it. It is a high intensity lifestyle that creates a lot of anxiety, a lot of depression, and unfortunately can also lead to suicide. The deepest desire of an overachiever, I feel like I have to yell because this cicada is so loud. The deepest desire of an overachiever is to live a full and happy life, and for everyone else to have their happily ever afters. You feel like that's a little bit counterintuitive. There's so much pressure put on an overachiever by their family and by themselves that it's like, how can that possibly be the desire when at the end of the day, I'm made to feel pressured for everything I do. Everything I do is not good enough. But ultimately, what's the point of doing everything good enough? What's the point of being perfect? It's to have your happily ever after. I'm not saying that this is justified. None of these are. But just so that you can understand what the true desire is, where this is coming from, and what some of the factors might be that pervert the desire when it's mixed with the fear and the subconscious agreements within these dysfunctional families. So what's the challenge when it comes to the overachiever? Very similarly to some of the others. The challenge is that it's not safe to slow down. The challenge is also that it's not safe to accept assistance because the weight is fully on your shoulders. You must be the one to succeed. If you have any assistance, you did not fully succeed. If you cannot slow down and you cannot accept assistance, how the heck are you supposed to find your happily ever after? How the heck are you supposed to heal these mindsets? It's so driven by fear and ultimately love. The fifth dysfunctional family is going to be the reflectors. The source of the reflectors is a lack of self-worth, an unknowing of who you are. The biggest fear of a reflector is to be exposed as a fraud. With a reflector, the actions of others reflect the value onto that person. If you are a reflector parent and your child does something and gets in trouble with the law, you're going to take that as a personal assault on who you are because you feel like the community is going to look at you and it's a reflection of who you are as a parent. Ultimately, it's that child and their free will, but you can't see that. I'm gonna say you. They can't see that and they can't accept it, so they're taking it upon themselves. The subconscious agreement of a reflector is, if people don't know I'm suffering, then I can convince myself that I'm not suffering. Again, the reflector's also the type of family that likes to maintain appearances. They're the ones that have to be groomed, wear nice things, everybody show up on time, be punctual, good grades, good attendance to work and school, and everything that you do is perfect. Your hair is perfect, makeup is perfect, your nails are perfect. Everything is just wonderful. You're involved in the school activities. You show up to all of the sports. I'm talking more about the parents here. And inside, you are dying. This is a reflector. The deepest desire of a reflector is to know who they are. Reflectors are lost. Reflectors have been caught up in the material world. They are swayed by whatever the current trends are, the current fads, the must-haves. They are caught up in what media likes to tell people is who they should be. Those are the reflectors. Their deepest desire is to break out and know who they are and walk with confidence. A lot of times you'll see reflectors lash out at people who know who they are, and they'll make fun of them because ultimately they are very jealous that this person knows who they are and they're unshakable. The challenge with a reflector is that they don't know that they're a reflector. A reflector, how can a reflector change when they don't know who they are. And nobody can tell a reflector who they are. We can speak truth into them and remind them that they're a being of light and love, but a lot of times they're very closed off to that. And they see light and love as woo-woo. They can't accept it. They want it, but they don't know how to articulate that they want it. They don't know that that's what they want because they don't know who they are. You cannot tell a reflector anything that they don't want to hear. It will not be received. Let's take a look at the breakdown of some of these emotions. If somebody is numb or closed off, that means that they are covering pain. If somebody has anger or they're abusive, that means ultimately that they felt or are feeling powerless. The desire of each of these is to be loved and accepted. If your family judges you for the things that you do, ask yourself why. Why are they judging you? Generally, it's going to be along the lines of they're holding you to a certain expectation. Why? Why are they holding you to that expectation? They fear that you won't fit into the idea that they have of truth. Why are they worried that you won't fit into that idea of truth? Because ultimately, they fear the consequences for you. Why? Why do they fear the consequences for you? Because they love you. If you click this video right here, this is a video that YouTube has recommended for you based upon your watch history. If you click my face right here, this is going to subscribe you to this channel. I'll see you next time.